All right, let's just jump right into it. Today, we're doing an explainer that collides two wildly different survival manuals for navigating a completely chaotic universe. On one side, a beloved sci fi comedy classic, and on the other, a dense punk rock masterpiece of modern neurosemiotics. It sounds like a crazy pairing, right? But both of these frameworks are absolutely obsessed with one question: how on earth do we survive when reality literally refuses to make sense? Well, Eveline Cote's journals hit us with a warning right out of the gate. You think you opened a book. The book has already opened you. We're not just passively absorbing data today, folks. We are stepping straight into a total ambush of cognitive interference. We're looking at how information fundamentally alters the observer. So, buckle up. Douglas Adams essentially maps the macro universe of space using absurdity and escapism. Meanwhile, Evelyn Cote maps the micro-universe of the mind through hardcore cyberpunk neuroscience. The secret thread binding them together? They both tackle what happens when reality breaks down. But man, their solutions could not be more radically different. To ground us a bit, let's think about Douglas Adams's famous Hitchhiker's Guide. This thing prioritizes pure survival over objective truth, which is perfectly symbolized by those big friendly letters saying "Don't panic." It really doesn't care about being a flawless encyclopedia. It just wants to keep you alive when your planet gets unexpectedly demolished. And you know, the guide is notoriously inaccurate. It gets compiled, recompiled, and edited endlessly, constantly updating itself based on the totally chaotic inputs from its field researchers. It basically proves that survival belongs to the system that can adapt on the fly.
Section 1. Enter Coyote Neural Logic, the epistemological predator. Pivoting from deep space to the deep brain, Eveline introduces us to Coyote. But listen, this isn't some mystical spirit guide. It is a straight-up epistemological predator. The coyote shows up when your brain's predictive models just crash. It's the exact moment your nervous system realizes that observing reality is actually constructing it. It's a harsh boundary condition where the brain literally has to rewrite its own rules to survive. And here is where things get terrifyingly cool. The coyote doesn't appear because you're watching it. It appears because something has finally become capable of watching you. The very instant your brain realizes it is constructing reality, the loop acquires teeth. Suddenly, you're trapped in a ferocious feedback loop with the world.
Section 2. Weaponizing the psychedelic mistake.
So this feral logic completely dismantles older psychedelic models. If you've read Tim Leary, or if you follow the modern Aribis model, you've probably been told that dissolving into entropy is the ultimate goal, right? The whole idea is to passively unclench, let the ego dissolve, and just wait for the universe to reveal its truth. But Eveline, she argues this is a massive, fatal mistake.
Her punk rock critique violently rejects that passive Tim Leary-style approach. Treating the brain like a passive container or equating mental looseness with actual liberation? She calls that lazy heat death disguised as therapy. It just completely fails to account for active interference and collision in the mind. Instead of just relaxing, Eveline introduces us to recursive vector interference, or RVI. She puts it perfectly. Rebus asks you to dissolve your priors. RVI says set them on fire and dance in the smoke. RVI doesn't let your mind just melt away into nothingness. It actually weaponizes the violent crash of competing internal models to build entirely new, incredibly durable cognitive structures. And you know what? This is exactly where the Hitchhiker's Guide gets it wrong, too. The guide tells you, don't panic. It wants you to evade the static with comedic detachment. But under RVI, you don't run from the crash. You forge meaning right out of it. When memory and perception collide head-on, they don't just cancel each other out. They create a stable ridge of meaning. The crash itself becomes your weapon.
Section 3. Eveline's Light Architecture.
Okay, so how does all this intense theoretical neurologic actually look in physical space? Well, Eveline didn't just write about these concepts, she literally lived them. Light architecture is this wild physical and cognitive framework where the human body itself acts as the interface. The goal isn't to just passively absorb the world around you, but to return existing light, biophotons, with intense, weaponized precision. Her raw notes are just fascinating. They show her basically wiring her own nervous system directly into the city's architecture. She famously wore this 66-degree north parka as if it were a literal equation for exposure, and she used morning glory vines to create these analog synapses across the concrete. Every single object became a mechanism to route human attention.
Section 4. Mimesis and Operational Fields.
This naturally brings us to pointing semiotics. Now, normally you point at an object just to direct someone's attention, right? But in this kind of recursive system, the pointing rebounds. You don't just describe a system from the outside, you enter it as a live perturbation. You point at the world points right back at you. And suddenly, that safe little distinction between the observer and the object collapses entirely. And this is the guerrilla semioticician's ultimate goal. When a command like OpenSFI executes, language stops being passive. Semiotics becomes operational physics. Signs stop just referring to things out there in the world and actually start executing commands in real time. The expression literally becomes the reality. To survive this kind of environment, we absolutely have to abandon the clean, safe geometry of elementary school grammar. You know, that neat separation of subject, verb, and object. In Evelyn's reality, we exist in what she calls operational bleed. Everything is a mutual, high-speed modification. Identity isn't some permanent fixture. It's really just a temporary stabilization amidst all the noise. Bringing it all back to the Hitchhiker's Guide, we can finally see its ultimate flaw. The guide claims that where it is inaccurate, reality itself has got it wrong. But then it just leaves it at that, right? Like a passive joke. Evelyn's coyote neural logic takes the next, violent step. When your internal loops clash with the external world, you don't just shrug it off with a laugh. You actively force reality to adapt to your interference pattern. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a recursive loop of your own to chew on. Both of these frameworks know the universe is complete chaos, but only one gives you the actual tools to fight back. As you sit there right now, absorbing this information and processing this operational bleed, I have to ask, are you observing this system, or has the system finally started observing you?